I am Dr. Funke Afolabi Brown, and we have an episode of our Candid Conversations today.
Hi, how are you?
I am so excited to be here. I'm sorry for
I
the minute technical issue that
no,
just happened.
on your end? I thought it was my end.
I'm not sure. I'm
It's
not
mine.
sure.
It's mine. It's always mine. Really, when it comes to tech issues. I think I had a call. Oh, hi, Dolly Pop. It's so good to have you here. I think I had a call coming in and I accidentally picked the call. So that, and then I hung up. I'm so sorry. If you join me live, I love you. I'll call you back.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Good to
Good
see
stuff.
you.
You
Oh,
too,
I
Dr.
know. I
Funke.
know. I'm so excited to be here. And I know you had drop off at college a couple of days ago. And where I'm hoping that you're feeling okay and good.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah,
I'm
it
good.
isn't.
I'm good. It's a little roller coaster and we just have
Mm,
to be here for all of it. But
mm,
ultimately it is such a blessing and it's really what we
mm,
work towards, is it not?
mm.
It's just such a beautiful milestone that is
Yeah,
just so filled with so many emotions, and
yeah.
relief is definitely one of them. So it's good.
Really?
Well, with
I
things,
love it.
when you plan
Ye-
something for so
Yes.
long and then it
Oh,
actually happens, it's
yeah.
just like, whew,
Okay.
okay,
Okay.
wow, this
Oh,
is
so that
good.
relief from that perspective, that makes sense. Okay. Because there are different kinds of relief you could feel when.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this dream that's
Mm,
like, you
mm,
you raise a good human being and they're gonna go
mm,
off and they're gonna, go thrive on their own and be these beautiful pieces of our community and
mm,
and give back and all that. And it starts
mm.
happening and you're like, oh, okay.
I know. Oh my gosh, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. But I am also so looking forward to our conversation today. And, we're going to be talking about sleep and mindfulness and, all that good stuff that helps our sleep. And really, this came from a place where I think I'd reached out to you because this is something I've struggled with in terms of when I work with some of my, or more of what my patients have struggled with when we're working together, right? Either teenagers or even the women that I work with, where they want to do all the right things, right? And so they're told you need to do your your meditation, you need to make sure your routine is this long, and so it becomes this big production that ends up becoming extra work for them. And so if they're in that setting where they are not able to fit all the things into their routine, including time to have some moments of mindfulness or practice meditation, then they're like, oh my God, my sleep is screwed. And it's so heartbreaking because it's an incredible tool that then ends up coming back to worsen their insomnia. So I really wanted to, just shed some light from your expertise and from you just working with so many people in terms of using these tools, specifically around sort of the broader, mindfulness. And then we could talk about the different strategies and then how it connects to sleep. But forgive me because I'm so excited about this conversation that I forgot to ask you to introduce yourself. So maybe we'll start with that.
I'm so excited to be here too.
Uh,
So yeah, my name is Dr. Rashmi Schramm. I am a family physician. I'm also an Ayurveda and meditation coach, and I host small group programs as well as one-on-ones. And I'm just thrilled to be here because this whole conversation started off as a very fascinating conversation of how maybe one of your patients or multiples of your
yeah.
patients and clients were actually finding that meditation, mindfulness practices ended up becoming like this obligatory and more stressful situation
Yeah.
as they were trying to reach, better, more restful sleep, which of course,
Mm.
that's the exact opposite of the entire intent. And
Yeah.
so we thought, well, why don't we have a conversation? Because if
Yeah.
if if two or three or four or five people are finding that to be the case, then
Yeah.
that's probably true for a huge number of people, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe whoever's listening now, or whoever's listening afterwards. And so if it's okay with you, I'm going to just take a 10,000 foot view and then we'll zoom right into that one particular question. So
Perfect.
when we just kind of look at the broad kind of hashtag of mindfulness, it is kind of a hashtag, isn't it? Mindfulness, I just like to define it. It's very simple. It is the awareness, so really awareness that arises when we are paying attention to this present moment without judgment and with curiosity. So it is exactly how a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old operates in the world. They are already always mindful. They're curious. They're not judging. They're in the moment. They're not worried about a conversation they had 30 minutes ago. and they're fully alive. When they are joyful, when their needs are met, they are just in bliss, right? Like a 3-year-old, if we're lucky enough to be around them. And so I like to say that to remind us that mindfulness is not something that we have to create. It's just something that we got away from as the stresses of life really started to build upon us. And so when we kind of just look at it as it's not something I have to strive for or achieve, it can change our perspective a little bit, because I think of stress and just conditioning and all of that over the years that we tend to have as kind of these layers of onions that can just keep piling up. And so a lot of the work that I help people do is we're just peeling off the layers. You're already whole. You're already completely this, peaceful, blissful being inside of this. We're just taking off the parts that aren't you. So I hope that helps as sort of a general overview of, we don't have to do something for this to count. Now, when we look at some of the science as to why, when you're working with your clients, when you're working with your patients, why you're saying, or why someone is saying to them, you should be meditating, you should try mindfulness, right? And there's so much data now, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg for collecting the data, because these practices in every ancient wisdom tradition date back to thousands of years ago. So every ancient wisdom tradition has some form of mindfulness, has some form of meditation that's already involved as a practice, as a daily practice. And so we may be one of the first or second generation that isn't already practicing meditation and mindfulness. And so as a whole, when we collectively study some of these things, we find some pretty generous benefits when we practice some kind of mindfulness practice, right? And we can talk about all the different ways we can practice mindfulness. We know that it increases the actual amount of REM sleep that we can get, and that's definitely true. We have studies on NSDR, the kind of meditations that we do in our small group programs. It helps us with turning on the relaxation response. So if you think of, the autonomic nervous system, that sympathetic overdrive, it's like a seesaw. It brings more balance in, because it brings in that parasympathetic rest and restore response. And so automatically what's happening is the heart rate is dropping, the breath is slowing down, blood pressure drops, all of those things, muscle tension drops. So all of those things that we need physiologically to enter deep restful sleep. And, there are studies that show that if someone wakes up in the middle of the night, that certain breath work and meditation techniques can also help them fall back to sleep as well. And there's neurotransmitter changes. There's a whole host of these things that we can get into, but there are probably a dozen or so reasons why someone is being told that maybe they should try meditation if they're having trouble with sleep. And so I hope that answer helps a little bit.
Perfect. It's excellent. I think it's just such an incredible tool, like you said. And I love the fact that there's evidence behind this. This is not just stuff that's, oh yeah, just try this, right? This is more of, there are physiologic changes, meaning there's the drop, because when we think about a situation where we want to fall asleep in, we want things to be calm, right? We want to feel calm. We want our minds to be calm. We want our body temperature to drop, our heart rate to drop, right? We want to be in that sort of parasympathetic state. And so a lot of the things we talk around, incorporating a routine, incorporating wind down time, achieves that. But then having a practice that can help you achieve that even more, I think is excellent. And I'm wondering if what then ends up causing a problem is you're being told, for instance, you struggle with sleep issues, and you're being told, well, this is one thing that works, so you better do it right. And so, or else, right? And so then it becomes that issue of, oh my gosh, am I breathing right? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it enough times? You know what I mean? Like, am I meditating right? And so all this worry starts to come up, which is like the direct opposite of what we're supposed to get, right?
For sure.
I think, yeah. So I think one of the questions that we can even delve into a little bit more are, you've told us a lot about how, practicing mindfulness practices helps our sleep, right? It helps us get deeper sleep, better quality sleep, right? That is beautiful. But then I think the next question I would ask is, what are the different types of mindfulness? Because again, it's like almost like a catch-all phrase. And so people then come with this list of things. And I really want us to sort of demystify it and really make this as simple for that person who's sort of like, well, what's this being in this present moment about? Like, what does that even mean? So maybe you could shed some light on that for us.
Yeah, for sure. If it's okay, I'll probably address the first thing that you were just talking about, which is this idea of, am I meditating right? And it has to look a certain way. That's a really common misconception or misunderstanding about meditation. So meditation, and I like to describe it as well. So I'll answer that second question. We'll come back to the first one. So meditation is really simple. It is a formal way to practice mindfulness. It's the fastest way that we can strengthen our mindfulness muscle. And meditation in its simplest form is just moving from activity into stillness or activity into silence, call it whatever you want to. So we aren't creating anything. Again, the stillness and the silence, they're already there. It's just our way of accessing the silence that's already there. And so when we think of that being a formal practice of mindfulness, and the definition of mindfulness is non-judgment, then that means there is actually no right or wrong way to meditate. And so we can dismiss that idea of, am I meditating right? Am I getting the benefits, right? And so there's also this misconception that we have to be free of thoughts, we have to control the mind. All of those things are really common that people will hear. And that's not really true at all. I mean, I think we'd have to be dead to not have thoughts during meditation. Over time, the thoughts do slow down because we understand where we direct our attention and our energy. And if it's on a particular mantra or if it's on a particular guidance, then just literally by virtue of inattention, those thoughts can drop away. So in other words, the quality of your meditation really just depends on the quality of the curiosity that we're bringing in. That's really all it is, right? Rather than judgment. And so if there's even a quality. So that's the first part. So the second part is, what are the different types of meditation, right? And so, but really, it isn't so much that there's so many different types of meditations. It's that, meditation is kind of this one really simple thing. It's like super simple. We can sit down, close our eyes, and pay attention to the breath for 5 minutes. And that is a very valid and beautiful and powerful way to meditate. And set your timer for 5 minutes and you get up and you go, right? And so in terms of the types of meditation, I think with the rise of apps, I think they're fantastic. I actually send my patients to them as well. They can be a little bit generic. And so if it's not particularly helpful for you, if you're listening, something like that, then I would say you can try something else. But in general, when we are able to have some kind of depth or mastery over just one kind of meditation, that's really where we start to see the benefits, right? Just like with everything else, like when we're skimming at the surface level, we might get some surface level benefits, but if we really get into it, then we start to see some deeper benefits, like literally rewiring the brain, like, these really major neurotransmitter changes, these not just like short-term brain changes, but very long-term physical changes that we start to see in the brain. And so I would say, if I had to categorize the types of meditation, I would say just focusing on the breath is generally kind of a first way to enter meditation practices. You can have guided meditations. Those are fine as well. Like visualization and things like that. I teach two very in-depth types of meditation. One is called a mantra meditation, and it is, dated back to 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. And mantra, sometimes also pronounced mantra, is really just a word for mind vehicle or mind ladder. So we give the monkey mind something to do while we slip past the mind. And that's a very in-depth type of meditation that we do. The other kind that I teach is called NSDR, or Yoga Nidra, non-sleep deep rest. And so, and that, NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, Yoga Nidra, that is probably one of the most potent vehicles in the universe to reset our sleep if there's any issues with sleep, which is why I run these very small, kind of programs, and I'm running one now. And a lot of the folks coming in are noticing big differences already within their sleep. And that particular meditation program is multifold, right? So we do some breath work, we do some body scanning, we really focus on shifting from thinking to either sensing or being, which is a skill that we can all develop. So that imagine if the mind is going crazy and you're trying to fall asleep, if we have developed the skill of being able to simply notice the breath and that turns on the parasympathetic response and we fall asleep, that's kind of cool. And it's free.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I'll take us even, for me as a Christian, as a believer, one of the things that I focus on is meditation on scripture. And so sometimes I'll take the word, like a scripture, there's a scripture that talks about he gives his beloved rest, for instance. And so again, it's about being in that present moment, saying, okay, what does that even mean, right? And just really poring over it and sometimes muttering it to myself. So again, I love what you talked about is really non-judgment, being in that moment and really not making it more of a sort of like a rule that needs to be followed, because there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong. I love that. The other question I had is, if we even peel back a couple of steps, we talked about meditation is as a type of mindfulness practice. So what are some other ones that you tend to have people also encourage people to participate in? I know you mentioned breath work and breathing, right? Sometimes I'll recommend journaling because you can be in this moment, right? So what are maybe some of those as well?
Yeah, I think we're on the same track here for sure. Some people just aren't quite ready or aren't quite, able to sit still for 5 minutes with their thoughts, for example. Eventually they will, but, we can do a walking meditation. So we can just unplug from, electronics and literally go outside for 10 minutes and look to see what's there right then and there, listen, and then, see if there's anything to smell. So really focusing on sensations. And sometimes you can just focus on, what do my feet feel like? And you can do that for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And that counts for mindfulness, right? Because it's an awareness that's arising because we're in the present moment on purpose. So that's a simple thing. So we can walk and be mindful. We can take mindful movements, right? So that's very, very important. We can literally do anything in a mindful way. Sometimes I'll just challenge myself to do the dishes in a mindful way because I have a lot of thoughts about doing the dishes and putting the dishes away. And they don't help me. They don't make the dishes go away.
And
if it's my turn to do the dishes. Exactly. So I'm just like, oh, I'm curious, I wonder how long this will take me or whatever, right? And so if I'm just curious about the dishes, I have practiced mindfulness, right? Breath work is a really great way to get into the body because a lot of the times the mind is like, whoo, it is just gone. And so a lot of it is just grounding the mind back to the body. Not that it was ever gone, but it thinks it's gone, right? And so the breath is really the connector from the mind body perspective. And we, know that, pranayama, for example, in yoga, which is, kind of an eightfold path, pranayama is just a whole entire limb of yoga. And it isn't so much that it's difficult to do, but it just requires consistency and a teacher who might be able to help if you get stuck with things. And so breath work is also really, really simple and easy to do and very accessible. We could be driving and doing breath work, right? And so we can have mindful conversations. Like right now, I'm listening to hear what you're going to say. You're listening to me. That's mindfulness right there. And so mindfulness doesn't have to look like us sitting on a mountaintop in lotus top posture with no thoughts. It can, but it doesn't have to look like that. It doesn't have to look any certain way. It can be a mindful conversation. It can be gardening. It can be going for a walk. It can be any one of those things. If we just allow ourselves moments of non-judgment, whether it's about ourselves or something else that we're seeing, and just moments of awareness, I am breathing, I am thinking these thoughts. All of those can just be very powerful ways to build our mindfulness muscle.
I think that is so freeing for a lot of people because, like you said, we could be having conversations, I mean, it might not be a mindful conversation. You could be talking and my mind is like in so many places, but really bringing myself to say, wow, what is she saying? And how is it interacting with my thoughts, right? And I think that's just beautiful. Like the example you gave, for me, some of the things I do sometimes, especially if it's like, "Arr," those thoughts, my goodness, is even when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm like, I'm feeling the brush on each tooth. I wonder about this. Wow, now it's closer to my gum. That's being mindful. Like it's not necessarily like you said, like sitting in some type of position or whatever. Like, and I would dare say, and I think that can lean into this last question before we talk about your program, is the fact that when you make this experience just part of what you do, where you sort of not detach from your thoughts, no, they're yours, right? But really being able to observe them and really being able to, again, be mindful and be in this moment, like making it something that you do even during the day, like you talked about. Like for you, it's dishes. For me, sometimes it's brushing my teeth. Sometimes it's in the shower, right? And sometimes it's with my breathing, and sometimes it's with my, study of the word, right? Like it's building that into your day. And so maybe you can also share with us, like, how can we make this whereby it doesn't become this thing that we have to work so hard to do in the evening before bed, but rather just another tool that can support us on this, our restful sleep journey. How do we sort of detach that, or what are strategies that you recommend for us to make this sort of part of who we are and what we do?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say if someone is encountering either an app or someone who seems to be very rigid or very in the box for this is the only way to meditate, this is the best way to meditate, those are all like red flags. That doesn't exist. And so I would sort of say maybe this isn't quite the program for me and look for something else, right? So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be to start really, really, really small. And so if it is intimidating to sit down for 10 minutes, but you've found an app that you like, or you've found one meditation that you like and enjoy, and maybe it's 3 minutes long. I mean, really the vast majority of the folks who come to work with me have already tried apps, have already tried a whole bunch of other things. And we start with breath work because especially if you do a more balancing type of breath work, or you just do that for 1 minute, then it can really begin to calm those thoughts so that you can then notice your breath for another minute, and you can call it your practice, and you can be grateful, and you can get up and go, right? Journaling, you mentioned that already. That is one of the most powerful ways that we can practice mindfulness, really, truly. And I encourage that for every single person that I work with. And so all of these different ways can just be so simple and starting small, right? So starting small, those atomic habits, anything that we do with consistency. So if we decide we're going to do breath work for 1 minute every day, that is compounding over the week, over the months. And over time, that will show huge benefits that you might not think of. And most people, the amygdala alarm usually won't go off when we say, can you try this for 2 minutes? Most of us have 2 minutes in our day to spare if we think it will give us some dividends back. And so start small, stay consistent, and most importantly, make it a practice of self-compassion. Make it a practice of softness. There is nothing about mindfulness, there's nothing about meditation that needs to look a certain way, feel a certain way for you to get all the benefits that we've talked about already. It really just means you set your timer for how much ever you want, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I mean, I've had folks who started at 2 minutes a day who are now at 20 minutes a day. And sometimes for me, I meditate every day for 30 minutes, and usually twice a day, but sometimes that's not enough. So my alarm goes off, and if I know I don't have something coming up, then I'll just sit for a little bit longer. So, but it took me like 15 years to get here. And so it isn't like everyone needs to sit for an hour. No, absolutely not. It really just depends on where are you getting your win-win.
And I think that is so freeing for the women that I work with who are busy women, busy brains, sometimes want to run away from those thoughts. And I think one of the takeaways here is really starting from a place of gentleness and grace to yourself and building from them. It's just really putting things in perspective in a way where you can actually be present with yourself. And I think that is powerful, because when you then have those tools, it becomes something that you use as a way to relax, as a way to sort of get out of that spiral that you may tend to be at night, which makes it really hard for you to wind down. And so using it as a tool, I think, is so powerful to help our sleep, like you said, to help our, our nervous system, to help our general health and well-being. And I think that is just incredible. And I think this has been so helpful. And I just want to say thank you. But then can you just let us know where to find you? What do you have up your sleeves? Because I know there's a whole lot of stuff coming up, and really let us know more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been such an enlightening conversation for me. I'm so grateful to have been here with you. So, like I said, I run small group programs, and right now I'm enrolling in one. I don't do that all the time. It's called Rewire Your Brain for Clarity and Focus. And that's literally what we're doing. And it's a 6-week program, just opened, just started yesterday. We've got some really amazing people in the community already. And so if anyone's interested, you can just go to my website. It's just my name, rashmischramm.com. Or if you want, you can find it through the link in my bio. We'd love to have you, especially if you have tried some apps and they felt a little generic and you're looking for a deeper experience. That's really what this is. And it's more of a, dip your toes in kind of thing, because it's 6 weeks. You can kind of see what it feels like. You can get a very deep experience, and you can have interactions with me, with the community. And I would invite everyone to do that. Thank you.
Awesome. So you guys heard, follow Dr. Schramm. I'm going to put the link in the comments as well, so that you could really learn. And I know you have tons of resources as well on your handle on Instagram. And so thank you so much for sharing this wealth. Thank you for just bringing so much enlightenment. And I could tell you just have this incredible aura. so clearly it works.
Oh my gosh. And this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Fouquet. Yeah. Thank you for the work you do. This is incredible. So if anybody's watching on my end, please follow Dr. Fouquet's work. It's incredible.
Thank you. And if you're a busy woman who's out there who is struggling with that busy brain at bedtime, and you're trying to find the opportunity, as well as figure out, how can I get my body to sleep? How do I change my relationship with sleep so that I can thrive? Then just go straight on to my website as well, restfulsleepmd.com. I'm still taking a couple of coaching clients, and I would love to have you on. All right, everyone, it's 6 on the dot, so perfect. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fouquet. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.